Okay, folks, back by unpopular demand. This
Got,
is
got a hopping
un-
feeling.
this is Unheavenly Host, brought to you by your favorite sidekicks, Albert Kim and J-Wit. Grab your latte, your matcha, your decaf, perhaps your calf. Uh, pull up. We're gonna be talking about a bunch of films over the next, hopefully, 12 months. It is the hope to cover films that have more substance and art, and films that are also less artful. Um, I think we can learn as much sometimes from the artless as we can from the artful.
I like that.
And it seems that many people think that you need a reason to live, that faith gives one a reason to live. And we want to basically exhibit, we want to be a demonstration of the fact that that is a falsehood, that there's plenty to live for after you leave the faith, and that we needn't go to someone else to find meaning for our lives. We can find it, and we can create it, I should say. Meaning isn't found in one's life, meaning is created. And one of the ways that we find ourselves quite fulfilled is in the arts. And when I
Mm.
say arts, I mean very broadly. I'm speaking of culinary arts, um, speaking of visual arts, I'm speaking of the music, the art of music making, all kinds of arts. In fact, almost everything that you can think of can be made in art form. And that's where humans often find great fulfillment, certain kind of satisfaction. So let's I take up all of the oxygen. Let's pass the mic to Albert, have him have a few words, and we're going to get into our very interesting movie analysis for the night.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, welcome everybody. I think when Jay-Wit and I have talked about doing this, I forgot how it actually came up, but I just recalled that I was intrigued and thought it was a great idea. And I think in a lot of ways, the way that we try to, I guess, create an extension from what we're doing with Icapod, uh, with all of the critiques that we do on this side, we thought it would be great if we can do tackling art, but doing it in a way where it can be relevant to all of the things that we've talked about, but also just having a little more fun with it, and
Yeah,
not always being a bit of a what half it's not that we're being Debbie Downers all the time, but we are being sharply critical and at times pedantic, or even at times uh, coming down pretty harsh with a sword. So uh, I think we could balance, we could find balance, and I think this is maybe one way we can do it. So yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
When we know that many of you guys who are following us now, you've come over from Icapod, so there is an overlap in terms of an audience that desires counter apologetic material. At the same time, much of this podcast is actually not devoted to counter apologetics, although today's will probably overlap on that quite a bit.
right.
But we just want to, it's funny to have to devote so much of our time to debunking bad Christian argumentation, to do something like this where we're basically telling people you kind of don't have to do that for the rest of your life.
Right.
You can get on with the business. one of the great things of leaving the faith is you finally get on with the project of actually living your life like a regular a regular human being,
Yeah.
kind of the way non-God intended it, right?
Right.
So, in other words, getting on with your life the way life basically can be lived without believing in some uh some crazy mythology, you know. Anyway,
Yeah.
we've I keep saying anyway and thinking I'm getting moving forward. We better get into the crux of things. So you guys, I'll have you guys know ahead of time, we're going to be editing out the movie portions of the pod. So Albert and I are going to be, so the what you're listening to is an edited version of our interaction. We're watching the movie together, but because of YouTube's strict guidelines concerning copyrights, we're going to have to edit out the portions while we're watching it and sort of mystery science theatering it. And then we're going to just you're going to get the commentary portions after we've watched, I don't know, 15, 20-minute segments or whatever. So just keep that in mind. We'll be sure to fill you in every time we begin our back and forth. We'll fill you in on what it is that we've just watched so that you'll have some indication of where we're at in the film. But we're working through the film from top to bottom. Okay? With that
Well,
being
not fully,
said,
not fully bottom, but close to it, right? At
close to,
least. Yeah,
yeah.
close to it.
I'm
Yeah.
just trying to indicate to them that we're moving in order. So we're
Right.
not going to just kind of like attack it thematically. We're actually so all of our little exchanges will be in the order that we've watched it. Okay.
Cool.
All right. It's all yours, Al. Take us away.
Sounds good. So the film that we are going to watch, we talked about it before on an episode of Icopod, but it's the actually let me do a quick share here. Ooh, it's a little slow. So we are going to talk about Left Behind. Woo! And this is the 2014 film version that came out about 10 years ago, and which is kind of wild. I can't believe 10 years has already passed because I remember this coming out like it was yesterday. But uh, this is a film that has been remade. It was also made in the 90s with starring Kirk Cameron. And it was based off of a book. I think pretty safe to say that everybody who is listening right now knows what this book is about. And I remember J-Wit told me, he kind of wishes that we could maybe do kind of a commentary or a thing on this film. And I was like, what? I was like, at first I was like, really? And then he was kind of like, well, you think about it, we could just, just kind of take it apart in this kind of like bad art kind of way, but making commentary, uh, doing a bit of a mystery science approach, and maybe it might yield something kind of interesting to talk about too at the same time. But it wasn't hard for me to accept it because I think a lot of times Jaywood and I, when we talk about art, we have a good time talking about bad art, or I should say, if some people have issue with the term bad art, maybe you can say that it's, uh, you know, maybe a form of, you know, how should I say it? Like a popular phenomenon that you see in the Christian subculture, but one that can be readily critiqued or made fun of or uh, satirized even. So, but yeah, I think any words, Jay-Wit, because I don't think
I
this
think
needs an
we
intro. Yeah,
No,
I
it
don't think this
doesn't.
needs
I
an
think
intro.
this will
Yeah,
be a good time for us to just jump right into the film.
yeah,
So we're dealing with Left Behind, which is essentially fan fiction from the Bible. Basically, it's like Bible fan fiction, essentially.
right.
So this is an interesting thing, and hopefully we'll be able to dig into that a little. as we start making commentary. But I guess we better pop it in.
All right, sounds good. Let's do it.
4 minutes into the film, all right, fellas, and um, we've they kind of already setting the premise. They've introduced a bit of a theological debate into an airport scene where some random Christian is trying to evangelize, and they get into a back and forth with an unbeliever who's going to be one of the main characters uh, about basically theodicy. So it's a bit odd, you know. It's a bit strange, you know. Theodicy being the theological answer to the problem of evil. Um, she introduces the conversation by saying, "Do you read your Bible or whatever?" So, and I told Albert to pause it just as a let me see, I guess to share my screen, I guess. Um, well, I shouldn't have to. Let me see. I don't think I have.
Yeah, I don't think you have to.
Yeah, let me see. All right. So I told Albert to pause it just as we got introduced to, I guess you would say, the debutante of the film. Would you say?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So she's like, it's an ironic kind of element in this film, particularly because this film is such a it's so evangelical and mainstream Christian. Even the soundtrack is a bit it almost has shades of CCM to it, you know.
yeah,
So they've got
yeah,
like guitar kind of strumming and whatever.
yeah.
So then you have this, you know, you have this lady who's sort of doing her lipstick, and she's emerging from the car. They show the leg shot. It kind of reminds you of, what's it, A Christmas Story, that film
Right.
where the guy
Yeah,
has like the he wins a prize.
yeah,
But you know, just like they're that's their way of introducing sex in it without, I mean, it's probably the least sexy part of the human body that they can show. So they're trying to get away with what they can get away with, showing a sexy leg in the film and showing a woman doing her lipstick. What do you think, Al?
yeah. It's just funny how they're it's like the culture has shifted, right? We've what's more allowable, I guess, from what a woman you know can show, right? Like if you showed this like 40, 50 years ago to a Christian audience, like it would have been totally scandalous.
I didn't even think about it.
In
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, in a Christian film. So um yeah, it's just so they're already setting up this weird thing where, okay, well, you got this Christian person quoting the Bible and getting into an argument with a journalist, I guess a journalist who captures, he's in like hot spots and around the world and writes a lot of good stories about, you know, uh, really kind of serious, uh, things that happen in the world. And then you just cut to this like, person in a car putting on her lipstick and, really, you know, sexy blonde, I guess. And, it's just, it's like, it's all setting up for, like, you don't even know what it's setting up for if nobody knows anything about this. Um, but it's just they're doing this, I guess, contrast thing, right, between the atheist or non-believer versus, already contrasted with a really, really annoying religious person, which is kind of weird. So it's like, but even and then I kind of I chuckled when I watched it, right? Because I was like you just presented the Christian at this airport like a really annoying person. It's just like literally the type of person you just that turns people off to, when they're being proselytized to. So just kind of weird art choices in that way. Like it's like I don't know how. I never read the book. Did you ever read the book, J-Wit? I
No,
never read
never
the
read
book.
it.
Yeah.
No.
So the book, I mean, I don't know how much of it has been like updated since the 90s version, like this film, but you know, like I think they're having to take some liberties probably. So who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think people are wearing like they're using smartphones in this movie,
Yeah. Yep.
which
Yeah, they are.
which doesn't, I don't think existed when the book was written. So yeah.
Yeah, they have to
Nice.
update their understand. Yeah, so then and
Yeah.
she's uh you know basically Nick Cage's uh love interest in the film.
Right.
So this is the scene where they both meet up early on. They have a relationship that's already kind of it's
So and then the atheist girl who was arguing with the Christian, this is a bit of a backtrack. She's talking to her mom in the beginning of the movie, and there's a quick shot of the photo on the in the kitchen where it shows Nick Cage. So
yeah,
apparently Nick Cage, that's his daughter. He's
yeah.
talking to
He's the protagonist of the film.
he's yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you think he's the protagonist, you would
Yeah,
say?
yeah, he's the protagonist, I would say. But
Yeah.
there
Okay.
are several other like supporting actors who
Yeah.
play important roles. But yeah, he's
Okay.
kind of
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
he's
interesting. My interpretation was his daughter was the protagonist.
yeah.
And then he was, but yeah, maybe that's up for debate.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
But
So
it's
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Jay.
well, I mean, it's interesting because they have to keep updating the film, like you say, there weren't cell phones
Hmm.
in the original, and it's like, oh well, we better now that we have this new important technology. You can't have the
Yeah.
second coming without cell phones, right? So now that we know that smartphones are a big part of it, we got to update it. But it just strikes me to be really odd that
Yeah.
you believe in something happening and because it's not I think we talked about this on Ecopod. I think I did it with Brady on one of the exit strategies where it's like it hasn't happened, so we're gonna make a movie. Like we're gonna
Yeah.
try to
Right.
make it
Right.
realize it in
Right.
fiction, basically. It's
Yeah.
because it's fictional. It's
Yeah.
not going to happen, but you know, think about it. If you were really thinking a second coming is imminent and it's going to happen, why
Yeah.
would you want to get in front of it and make oh, let's get popcorn and sit down in a movie theater and watch a
You're
film about
right.
something
That's
that's
another
going to happen?
problem.
It's
Yeah.
just, yeah, it's just there's a bit of cognitive dissonance.
So
But go ahead.
I was also thinking, J-Wit, like, like how predictions when you see every 10 years maybe a new person who interprets how the end times will happen, they're always updating the scenario with modern technology, right? Like, so this film's doing the same thing. Like if they're
Mhm,
yeah, right? Like it's like, oh, obviously hornets mean helicopters, or
mhm,
however they may interpret the imagery in Revelation. And then, if a new like type of military technology or any other societal technology crops up, and then they'll just, oh, it's like, oh, the text must be talking about that. So
mhm.
so yeah, I think in the same manner we're seeing that here,
Yep.
in a film. Yeah, they may make another one in 20 years, and then we'll see we'll see how the update goes on that front.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Well, we
yep.
should probably I'm trying to keep track of where we're at for my timestamps. This is a first run through with this kind of thing, audience. So just bear with us. We're figuring this thing out, but we're actually watching it together, and then we're gonna again, like as I said, we're gonna edit out the film so that you just get the commentary. All right, you can pick us up. I'll take us. So yeah, so here we go. So we have Nick Cage and his daughter are, as you can see right here on my screen, they're talking and basically, Nick Cage is introduced as both the protagonist and the chief sinner in the movie. And obviously, him being a sinner is going to be a useful trope because you can utilize him to be
Yeah.
one of the individuals that's left behind. He also happens to be a pilot. So
Yeah.
he's conveniently both a pilot and a person who's not saved or a sinner.
Yeah.
And his great sin, of course, is sexual in nature. He's cheating on his wife. Go figure.
Yeah.
Um, they he's doing one of the things that Christians frown on quite a bit. It's sexual in nature. Even in the movie, they don't really. um, because it's a Christian movie, they kind of dance around. I mean, they introduce his love interest in a sexual way, but they kind of don't explicitly hint at any real sex. But clearly,
Yeah.
that's what's being implied
Yeah.
here. You want to
Yeah.
make a quick comment about that, Albert?
Yeah, I always the fact that you called him a chief sinner, I think is kind of funny. So,
Yeah,
like in any other story when there's when there's a character who's maybe not being moral or something, it's just not like you don't put that label on it. But like the moment you put that label on it, uh from like from a Christian film art perspective, it kind of takes on
hmm
like
hmm
it's almost, it just doesn't, I don't know, something about it where it's just like, it's like, okay, whatever, whatever, dude. Like, okay,
hmm
here he goes.
hmm
I don't know, like has no weight. It almost doesn't really have weight to it in a way.
hmm
It's you know, anyway, that's my takeaway from that.
On the airplane when they finally board, there's a situation where the the pilot here is entertaining his love interest in front of some of her coworkers, and they let in on the secret. Oh, he's got this salacious relationship going on.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, like again, it's kind of prudish. It's sort of like, but they have to. It feels like it's like obligatory for the movie. In terms of, it feels like they're putting this. It's not a natural thing to have in the film, but it feels like they feel like they need a sexual element in the film because it's a movie. Sex sells, right? So you got to get the sexy stewardess in the relationship with the pilot or whatever. You kind of have to hint at that. It's a total. If you ask me, it's totally superfluous. It doesn't really forward any. It doesn't really help the plot of the film at all. But it's there because it's Hollywood and you need some sex, right? What do you say?
Yeah, well, they had to show like how bad he is, right? So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so they're showing well, like I'm I was laughing because the joke that he makes to the stewardess who he's having an affair with, it's
Mm-hmm.
like a really terrible joke. So I
Mm-hmm.
guess I guess sinners don't even make good jokes. I
Yeah,
don't know. Like because
yeah.
the other stewardess is like, "Oh, that joke was bad. It was like a dad joke," you
Mm-hmm.
know, and whatnot. And so it's like it just doesn't, I guess they couldn't. Here's the problem: they couldn't even write a really like shocking joke,
Yeah,
or because it's so they're doing this like constant hedging with the script
yeah,
with what
yeah.
they can do. So
Yeah,
it's pretty
it's
funny.
extraordinarily naive. It's,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
he's a bad
yeah,
guy. He's a bad guy for the most obvious bad guy reason. He's running off on his wife.
yeah, yeah.
So they have to sell you, which is interesting because
Well,
we'll get to this, but similar to the way they deal with the Israelite conquest of Canaan, where in order for them to commit the genocide, you got to have the people who they are genociding being really, really bad people, so that you feel
yeah,
okay about the fact that you're well. In a similar way, they're trying to paint him out to be bad enough to be left behind because that's what's going on here. Um, so you have to, but I think it's going to be interesting once we get to. Yeah, let's keep it moving. Let's keep it
all right.
moving.
Like, this is the only part of the movie where they try to show diversity.
All right, yeah. That's what.
Yeah.
Let's pause it here. Let's see.
Okay.
Hold on. We're at 47. Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
You can pause it. Okay. I'm doing my calculations. So we're
Oh,
33.
you're doing a lot of math here.
33 minutes in. We're doing a little combo. All right, cool. Um, yeah, so I think I took a screenshot of this. So we should do number 3. Uh, well, this will have to suffice for now. I meant to get a photo of the DEI kind
Yeah.
of hires for the movie.
Yeah.
We
Exactly.
have like there's a scene, actually it might be worth it. Hey, Albert, talk to them for just a little, and I'm going to try to go ahead and upload that DEI scene because there's a scene
Sure.
early on.
Yeah, no, just I'll just recap what we watched. So there's a
mm,
part in the film where, after we're introduced to the father, and the daughter and the reporter guy who she's befriended, who's wrote this, like, big book, and you know and he's about to board the plane, and the daughter, like, there's a lot of filler, like there's a lot of build up to this, and it's just like very, we were just watching it. It's like there's so much superfluous, like, chatting and banter, sort of, and then like trying to get all emotional a little bit with, it's just basically very slow build up. um the fact that you have Nick Cage doesn't even save it at all. I really like Nick Cage as an actor, but the lines he's fed are so bad, and like, just
yep.
he doesn't really save it, even though he's like telling jokes, or doing all this stuff. So it's like, really, it's
Agreed.
like,
Agreed. Yeah, it's bad. It's
uh,
bad.
it's so bad. It's like, where are you going? Like, you're taking us somewhere, but it's like they just chose to just, I don't know, give a lot of filler, like thinking it would create a lot of emotional connection or something, you know, to these characters, but they're not doing a good job.
Yep.
It's just using a lot of tropes, or uh just very trite with, you know, the dialogue, and when the daughter is trying to, it's like having this emotional thing with, the journalist, like, he's just not delivering the lines very well. All that. It's pretty funny. It's pretty funny to
Hmm.
me. Yeah.
I think,
So
like I was saying, there's this sort of DEI scene where it seems
mhm.
seems like it's. I'm going to try to pull this image up so you guys can see
Yeah,
what I'm talking about.
yeah.
Let's see if I can do this really quickly. Right, I should be able to do this very fast. Okay. All right, so I'm going to do two first. Here you go. See if you guys can see that. You see that?
Yeah. So,
Let me
so
see if.
so you got a black family somewhere in there. You got
Yeah,
a
you
Middle
got
Eastern
a
guy.
guy. I don't even think he's actually
Yeah.
Middle Eastern. I think he's like a white guy with a beard
Yeah.
that looks like a kufi on. So that's the
Yeah.
first shot. I'm gonna show you the
Yeah.
other one, which I thought was pretty funny. Let me see if I can pull this up. And
I'm kind of wondering, like, in the Kirk Cameron version, I wonder if you show the airplane, it's all like white people, or like mostly white people. I'm
probably
just
is.
I'm
It
curious.
probably
I
is.
don't know.
It probably
Probably.
is. But they even have a
Yeah.
little person in there. You see this?
Oh yeah, that's
Or
right. They have a little person.
they even have a little
Yeah, that's
person. You
right.
see,
They got a little person in there. Oh
you see
yeah.
that?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
they managed to, like, so it felt like it was done intentionally just to
Right.
fulfill it. I don't know. To me, it seemed so wooden that it seemed like they felt like there was probably some requirement in Hollywood that they
Right.
have a certain amount of diversity on the
Right.
set, and there's it's like true evangelicals producing the film. They just put in, it's like, all right, we're gonna get a little person, we're gonna get a black guy, we're gonna get somebody who represents the middle, So yeah, man,
So
it's kind of wild.
it's kind of wild. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
representing everybody. Yeah,
Or,
I wonder if they would
or,
call it woke. Just because they put those people,
I don't know,
today.
but it just seemed like an excessive almost amount of diversity. As weird as that
It's like
sounds.
excessive, right?
There's even an Asian guy there. So you got
Yeah,
like an Asian
yeah. You
guy,
got
a
an
black
Asian guy.
guy, you got a little person. It's like, are you serious? Like, and it's just, it's like, what's the chances that you dip your cup into the
Uh,
pond and you get this amount of diversity?
yeah, yeah.
So
Exactly.
anyway, let's keep it moving. We'll move on to the next
All
scene.
right, all right. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. Doing it.
So the mom, she's working a garden, doing some very kind of
Yeah.
domestic type things. She takes uh her
Yeah.
gardening gloves off and puts them on top of the Bible that's very conspicuously displayed on the
Yeah.
screen.
Yeah.
Um yeah, we just Albert was just saying
It's so
how
explicit. Yeah.
yeah, it's so non-subtle
Yeah.
or unsubtle.
Yeah.
And Albert pointed out how tropey the film is in general. Like everything is like,
Yeah.
like the little guy,
Yeah.
he's actually seeing a guy having a conversation that's all actually so the guy's having a loud conversation that's establishing him to be a pretty bad person. And then
Yeah.
the little person looks back at him and he's like, kind of shakes his head. But
Yeah.
clearly
Judgmental.
now,
Yeah.
this guy, whenever the rapture takes place, that guy's going to get
Yeah.
left, right?
That
Because
guy's
he's
gonna get
he's dealing in bad business. So it's kind
no,
of
but then
ridiculous.
then then the little guy gets left behind too because he's judging him, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
like he's like,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
So it's just chock full of just nonsense. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, so you got like, and then it's so funny actually because I'm wondering if you and I were to like write a script on this, like could we actually do the trope thing better than
Yeah.
how they do it here? Because
Yeah.
it's almost like it's like they're giving it to you, but they're not like going. If you want it to be satirical or I guess more compelling or
Mhm.
funny, is you can just push that line, and then you can and it could actually be really funny or
Yeah.
satirical. Yeah.
Which is, yeah. Pause it.
Okay, pause it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
yeah, so I
Okay.
guess
So
as the
47 minutes. Okay.
yeah
So, yeah. So this, they got generic. In fact, it's like you can see the audience they're making this film for. They're in some nondescript strip mall. It's like they're describing their world. The audience they're making this film for is they're showing them scenes from their lives. Like,
yeah
so their idea of culture is, not knocking this either, but their idea of, okay,
yeah
what does it look like to have a cultural scene when we're going to have our big moment happen? Oh, it looks like, taking a trip down to the strip mall and
yeah
seeing very generic breakdancing happening. It's like when I look at it, it's like just it just looks like very generic and bland American. But that's intentional because the audience they're trying to connect with that believes this nonsense, that's probably where they're
yeah
hanging out on their free
yeah
time. Like some strip mall somewhere. And again, they have a bunch of DEI hires like doing breakdancing or whatever. And I guess it's like,
yeah
oh, this is the edgy cultural moment of the film, but it's very
yeah.
bland and just
It's so, and then
nondescript.
it cuts to the plane where you just have stewardesses passing out food. You have
Hmm.
Nick Cage who just has to get up and maybe go to the bathroom.
Yeah,
You have it's like
there's really not. It's like, okay, we just have to. They're trying to get you ready for what I would describe as some sort of
yeah,
mixture of horror and just really bad horror film too. But it's kind of gore. It's sort of gore, like not really a whole lot of gore, but a little. I mean, because remember, this is a Christian audience; they need to keep it PG, so they can't show you too much. But it's implied. But that's the action of the film. So
yeah,
they're trying to create a believable world, and it's unbelievably bland for all the way up until the actual rapture moment
yeah,
happens, and then from
yeah,
that point on, it if you were a believer that was believing in a rapture and you watch this, I don't know how this wouldn't be an argument against the idea that there's a rapture happening because there's so many things that don't even make sense about it. But yeah, I get it.
it's funny because from a film perspective, right? It's like that it doesn't work. The form doesn't really work. It might work better in a book.
Hmm.
It depends on, I don't know how the book wrote it, right? But a movie I'm thinking of is there's an old film called Fail Safe, which is based on a fictional novella, and it has to do with the Cold War. And there's a scene where not to it might be a bit of a spoiler for some people if you're interested, but it's an old film. But there's a scene where when people are about to get hit with a nuclear bomb, like the film does a really cool thing because it's like it captures the daily life, right, of people, but like the whole it's coming, or something shocking is coming, and when it happens, then all of a sudden the mundanity, or the everything that's trivial about life becomes much more like the contrast becomes really heightened, right? And this film doesn't do like this film had to do something like that, right, in order
Hmm.
to make that moment really, really happen. Uh, but all they're doing is just giving you like, oh, she's a Christian, reads the Bible, you know.
Yeah, they're basically
Yeah, yeah,
they're putting a little Easter eggs or whatever. They're
yeah,
saying like, all
yeah,
right,
yeah,
he's
yeah,
not gonna, he's gonna be missing. He looks over to the guy, say, hey, you're gonna
yeah,
share that with the little black girl? You're gonna share
yeah.
something? Oh, she doesn't need anything. So the
Right,
guy who suggested, hey, maybe we should share this with the little black girl. He's gonna
right,
be gone. He's gonna vanish when the rapture takes place. He vanishes. But
right.
the other guy who denies her, he's gonna be, So it's very just simple kind of. It's a
Yeah,
very odd.
I guess they were just banking on the whole idea that people would just be shocked when the rapture happens, right? It's just like it just happens, and then you're just like, okay, what happened, right?
Yeah.
But everything leading up to it is just like what? It's just
Yeah, I mean
so bland
they're
and boring.
clearly
Yeah,
just trying to get you. They're clearly trying to just get you to the
yeah,
rapture moment because
right,
that's going to be their big. That's going to be the big moment that
yeah,
the whole show is based on.
exactly.
Um, which I guess we should talk about that in a moment too. Actually, Albert, let me see. I'm gonna take a screenshot here. It's funny. I think I'm gonna put it up just like this unedited, just so people can see how we um because we really can't show the film, but we can show you little bits and pieces. So while we're talking, I'm actually taking screenshots of relevant. Let's see. So this is the
Yeah.
moment. Go ahead. Go ahead. You can
No, no,
talk
go
while
ahead.
I'm.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. So one of the things that I feel like I'm trying to figure out how this film can be genre. Like, what is the genre of it, right? It's not, I mean, sure, you can call it apocalyptic, whatever, but I'm just talking about what we know about films. So, I mean, it's not a horror movie. Maybe it's trying to be a little bit, but it's not even like
No, it definitely tries a little
it,
on with the horror.
yeah, a little bit with the horror, but not really. It just doesn't go far enough. And then you can say that it's a mystery, kind of a mystery,
Remember this
whatever.
scene?
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh,
Let's
this is
see.
jumping. This is jumping
Yeah,
to it though.
yeah, but
We're
I'm doing that on purpose because I'm like,
okay.
this is the next significant thing that happens.
Yeah,
In the mall is she's hugging, I guess it's her little brother,
yeah.
and he basically vanishes. So she ends up hugging close. But yeah, so that's the moment that everything changes. But yeah, we'll come back to that moment. But yeah, like you said, in terms of the genre, it's it's a pastiche. I wouldn't say it's a pastiche. It seems that it's heavily relying on suspense, kind of like drama and horror. That seems to be what it is. It's a combination of those two things. Now, unfortunately, it fails miserably at both of those things. It's not quite. There's a scene in, I guess, a room full of incubators, or I think it was the children's ward, a cancer ward, or something in the hospital,
Mm,
um, where the woman walks into the ward and she's standing there and she thinks it's only her, and then there's this like really shocking moment where it's like she turns around and there's like a woman who looks like a zombie behind her. You
yeah,
remember what I'm talking
yeah. I
about?
remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
I
Yeah.
maybe would have grabbed a screenshot of that. But go ahead. You were saying a couple things yourself.
No, so yeah. So I think you know, trying to you talked about the genre like suspense. Like it doesn't like I don't know where the suspense is. It's almost like what's weird is like they have
Well, the
you
suspense is obviously there. They're trying to make you don't know how the thing is going to be resolved. They're in this plane, they can't land. You know what I
no
mean? So they keep you.
yeah no exactly. But the problem is like in a suspense film, you know what's at stake. Like you know what's happening. Like you understand like who's going to like why people are losing or why people are have to suffer like bad consequences, right?
You don't
and
think
and
they try to give you that here
no,
by
no. So
making
what
it
I'm
as
trying to say, though, is yes, they do give you, but then it doesn't it because it's coming from a very narrow sliver of how people interpret revelation. The this particular kind of not only dispensationalism, but it's also like people who believe that all children go to heaven, right? It's like really like we're talking really narrow. Like this is
yeah,
how
yeah. All right, that's good.
yeah, yeah,
So you can see. So
yeah.
yeah, so here's what we're calling the horror elements, of the film, where it's minimize that so they don't strike us for So there's the horror element, as you can see, the suspense, like she's walking, she thinks she's alone, and then some curtain is really abruptly pulled back, and then you see this person who looks like a zombie, essentially. So, right, this is like zombie apocalypse type
Yeah,
stuff,
zombie
right? Yeah,
apocalypse. Yeah, that's the
yeah,
closest that they could come to. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But yeah, you're right.
ridiculous.
The presumption here is that all the kids have been raptured. And the problem with this is if you compare this with the text, in the conquest of Canaan, all the kids get killed. So why the sudden change in
Yeah,
God's disposition toward
right.
children? So you can see them reading in more of a contemporary ethic into God in this movie, because every kid is raptured in there. But if you look at the text, the kids are presumed, if you think about apologists who try to give you reasons for why they kill babies and young people in Canaan, they would say, oh, they were going to grow up to be wicked just like their parents. They were such a corrupt society. So why is it that every kid in this film is raptured? What do you think, Albert?
I think it's that evangelical view that it's about the age of accountability.
Mhm.
That's all it is. Yeah.
That's what
So
it's. That's what it is.
oh yeah, 100%.
Now, how does that mesh with their understanding of the conquest of Canaan when you have infanticide and genocide?
Yeah, I mean that's where apologists like William Lane Craig will say, well, they're doing a mercy, right? Because these children are going to go to heaven, so it's actually merciful for you to just slaughter children, right? That's how they
All right,
that's
I guess maybe
yeah,
I haven't stated it. I need to state it a little more clearly. If if the conquest of Canaan is a physical or an earthly manifestation of spiritual realities, and the adults and the children suffer because of the sin of the adults, if we took it and made it a spiritual analogy for our time, wouldn't it be the case that likewise the children of sinners would also lose their souls along with the adults? And you get what I'm saying? So there is a bit of it, lack of symmetry. This is almost like that Pauline lack of symmetry
yeah,
in Romans. Yeah.
yeah. No, absolutely. So I think however the dispensationalists or the type of dispensationalist is trying to negotiate with the text, right? You can come up with you know a different answer to that question. So um yeah
I thought that was one of the most pressing or glaring faults with this film, is the fact that they just presume that all the children are going to be raptured, which is a lot of people.
yeah, it's a lot of
Um,
people, but
and
it's like but the suspense has to be right. They're banking on this whole thing of it's like why did the children leave, right? But it's like you're not, if you're left there asking questions, you're actually not really in the film. Like you're not,
mhm.
because the film doesn't do anything to explain away the reason behind any of this. All it says is that these people were Christians and they're children, and
Yeah,
okay. This is like
yeah,
okay,
yeah. And
like
it is interesting that they put a Muslim on the plane, and he actually says something about praying to his God at some point,
right.
and he was like, yeah, basically that's useless, So they're kind of crapping on Islam. It's just like a weird, like you didn't have to. They went out of their way, if you're doing a Left Behind film, you don't have to go out of your way to put a Muslim in it who's also left behind, but that's their way of condemning Islam. You see what I mean? So they're just, it's cheap in a lot of ways. They're taking cheap shots, it's unnecessary, Oh yeah, okay. So she makes her way to a hospital eventually. Okay. So it keeps kind of cutting between her journey. So like Albert at the top of this podcast was saying he thought maybe she was the protagonist, and I was saying Nick Cage was the protagonist. And I think I'm realizing here that the two of them are both protagonists of the film, and they basically pivot between her because she's integral to how the film ends and his drama on the plane. So she's basically being utilized to show you the madness and mayhem happening down on the planet while they're airborne. And his dilemma, I guess they utilize him. What do you think, Al? It seems almost like they're utilizing him more to examine the theological reason for the mayhem that's down on the earth, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Because he's dealing with like the philosophical reason why this is happening. He's having the crisis in the sky, quite literally, and she's down on Earth just dealing with just insanity.
Yeah, so they're probably both protagonists on the same level. Yeah, it just and you're doing this constant meanwhile back at the ranch, kind of back and forth, between the two.
Which makes it, which is one of the reasons why when Albert was drawing his cursor across, you kind of couldn't really get a consistent scene of what's going on because they keep jumping between the plane and what's happening. But Albert pointed out, they made a big deal about clothing. That's how they indicate they don't really show anything supernatural in the film, but they just show you a bunch of piles of clothes.
Yeah,
which indicate that everyone
which is like really, you talk about anticlimactic, or you talk about it's just funny that their naked bodies are going like you just think about that they were all naked when they went up, I guess, to heaven, and it's just a bunch of clothes lying around. It just kind of, I don't know, when you think about what a rapture is or how it would happen. I mean, it's not that exciting in a way. Like you just kind of, they just disappear, and then
they assume that it's almost like they assume that clothing, like if you think about when Christ is presented as raised from the dead, he's wearing clothes when he's raised from the dead. In fact, he's in the text or whatever, he looks just like a regular person. So it's kind of interesting that they have this non-corporeal idea of what a rapture is, that it's you're just a disembodied spirit, like for some reason your body vanishes, but you drop your clothes, but you wonder why I don't know, it's like they just turn you into a ghost essentially, which not every form of Christianity believes that's what happens in I don't know, in the eschaton, that you don't
here's
have
the thing.
a body.
They're not being resurrected, right? They're not being resurrected.
That's true.
They're being, so to be honest, I think it makes more sense that people's dead bodies should be there. I mean, like everybody, like, wouldn't it be crazy if literally, like, when with the rapture happens, like everybody dies, like all the children die.
But no,
like,
1 Thessalonians 4 says that we who remain will be caught up to meet them in the air.
They meet him in the air, but there's no, but
he says we shall not all sleep, meaning, and there, that's a euphemism for die.
We should all sleep.
Dead body. Yeah, so there
wouldn't be dead bodies.
So the bodies, he said, we will be changed in the moment of a twinkling of an eye. So the idea was people who believe in a rapture could also believe that your actual body is changed into this kind of spiritual body. But
so
there's no reason to think that you're just invisible and whatever.
I'm just thinking about how to make the movie better. That's what it's like. What would be better? I mean, like they just kind of disappear. Like, okay, I mean, it is cheaper to make it that way, but
yeah,
I'm just thinking
they use CGI to show another plane nearly colliding with Nick Cage's his plane, and you realize, oh, he's like that was an unmanned plane essentially. I guess the pilot was raptured or something. So everybody. So this is the one of the points I was hoping to make on the pod is that ironically the rapture causes absolute chaos. Like you have a pilot that's raptured, and then you have a plane that's full of people that's gonna go down because he got raptured. You have accidents, and that's what you were saying was a pretty ridiculous scene where there are cars running into other cars. There's people beeping horns, people pulling out guns, and it's just it becomes that's the horror film element. They turn the Earth into a absolute hellhole. For no pun intended. It turns into hell. It becomes hell on Earth, and I guess that's the price you pay for all the good people being taken out from the planet. I guess really abruptly. It's really stupid.
It's really dumb.
It's so stupid. It's such a stupid film, man. It was so bad, man. I called you after I finished. I was like, this thing is so bad, man. But you were busy. Yeah, it was so bad. I couldn't believe I put myself through it. I was waiting for it to get at least even a little good, and it just never got good. It was just low budget.
Yeah, I thought. Go, yeah, keep going. It's sort of like
it felt like they knew they were like, this is a cash cow. We know it's not like good. We know all the actors and stuff. They got one big name actor. That like you said, this guy's buying islands and stuff. And he needs to he needs to get his wealth up. So they find one big name actor to include in the film, and then it's just bad writing, bad everything, bad CGI. And I honestly think it was just a cash cow.
I mean, I don't know how much money this movie could have made because the target audience is such a niche audience.
Let's check it out. Let's check it out. Let's see what it made.
I mean, for the audience, if you don't know, Nicolas Cage, I mean, he's actually one of my favorite actors because he's been in some films that I really love. And he's apparently he has like a really terrible like he's terrible at managing his money, so I guess he's just buying mansions everywhere. He's just spending.
Oh wow, there's a new Left Behind that came out in 2023, and it's Rise of the Antichrist. Yeah, yeah.
Was it?
I felt like there was a cliffhanger. I felt like there was a cliffhanger at the end.
There is
where they were setting up for a sequel.
Is Nick Cage in that?
I'm looking now.
So
he doesn't appear to be in it. He doesn't appear to be in it.
Doesn't appear. Okay, yeah. So he's like he's like, no, I can't do this again. It's just he couldn't do it again. I feel like all the debt he has.
You see certain movies and you see how like they end. They're like, oh, it's just begun. They made a statement about it's just begun or something.
Right.
And you knew that they were anticipating a sequel or whatever. But just imagine again. Consider this, audience. You believe something is actually going to happen. Something's really going to happen in history. And you have to make fictional movies about it before it happens. Like, I don't know. It's like, I mean, it's hard to take this seriously. It's like, do you really believe this is going to happen? Like, if you're doing like a sequel to it, like the guys who are making the film are planning the sequel, so you clearly don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. Like you can't be planning the sequel and actually think it's going to happen before your sequel is released, and you're using current technology for the film. So it's just like the guys who are making this, I can't see how they actually think. Let's see.
Well, that's the thing. When you read about dispensational eschatology, premillennialism, 7-year tribulation, I mean, On the surface of it, it does sound like a movie, right? It kind of has this kind of, movie quality. That's why they made a movie called Megiddo, right? Like
All
20
right.
years ago. Yeah,
This is
got it.
Left Behind played on 1,825 screens on its opening weekend, taking the number 6 position in the U.S. box office
Oh, that's
with
pretty
6
high.
million. Yeah, with 6,300 $147. So $6,300,147 that it made. I guess that's what it made.
Yeah.
Seemingly they're saying that I think what they're saying. Took the number 6 position at the US box office with $6,300,147. So yeah, I guess that's what it made. All right. The film
So
gained 62 screens the following weekend, but posted a decline of 55% to the end with $2,834,919.
because they saw it and it was like, oh my God, even the Christians were offended.
Yeah, this is nuts. I'm
Yeah.
just thinking. Let me look at this. With the former grossing. Okay, so it
Yeah.
showed in Singapore and Russia. I mean, it made money. Like that's what I say. I think. Let's see.
I mean,
Critical response.
it's really because of Nicolas Cage. He's really the reason why it probably made money. They were a
I'm
little bit
assuming. Yeah,
smart about that. Yeah.
they needed a star for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
The film was panned by critics on review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes. The film has an approval rating of 0%. Whoa, I didn't realize that. Based on 70 reviews. So that's not an insignificant amount of reviews with an average rating of 2.4 out of 10. The website's critics' consensus reads, Yea, verily, like unto a plague of locusts left behind hath begat a further scourge of devastation upon Nicolas Cage's once profound filmography. That's kind of like your thoughts.
Oh yeah, totally.
Oh,
Well, the thing is, Nick Cage is, I think, still making good movies, though. It's just so weird that he chose to do something like this. He's not making movies like Adaptation, which is he's I think is one of the best roles he's been in.
yeah, this
But
is
yeah,
a scourge of devastation upon Nick Cage's once proud filmography. That's a pretty harsh.
yeah, I thought it was when this came out 10 years ago, I was like, really? Nicolas Cage? I can't believe he's, stooping that low to,
It
try to,
says
yeah.
in a review for Entertainment Weekly, film critic Lindsay Barr gave the film a grade of F, writing, "At best, Left Behind is shoddily made. Didn't say a shot. Is shoddily
Right.
made sensationalist propaganda." That's what she says. At best, it's shoddily
Right.
made sensationalist propaganda with atrocious acting.
Yeah.
Says was it with atrocious acting that barely registers as entertainment. At worst, it's profoundly moronic. Audiences, Christian or not, deserve better, and it's hard to imagine that the ham-fisted revelations in this schlock could serve any higher purpose. So, I
I
mean,
I mean,
yeah,
yeah, that says it all because, we you can't really expect to make a great film if what you're just doing is, just like it's actually very sincere what they're doing. Like because
I
they
wonder what
believe
the
it.
budget was
Yeah.
because it had to be
Yeah.
fairly low budget. So I'm going to say I'm going to
Yeah,
look low
of
budget.
course. Maybe, but probably higher than the average Christian film.
Whoa, let's see.
I mean, they had to pay Nick
Left
Cage.
Behind was it's saying $16 million. That's what it's
Yeah,
saying. Left Behind was
yeah.
released in theaters on October 3rd, 2014 by Freestyle Releasing. It was panned by critics and grossed 27.4 million worldwide against its 16 million project budget. So they spent 16. That's hard to even believe that they spent 16. I bet you Nick Cage must have gotten at least 3 million from that. They probably had to
Yeah,
pay him at least 3 or 4 million.
yeah, 3 or 4 million,
Oh,
yeah, or maybe even more. Who knows,
yeah,
right?
because
But
he's the draw. Like,
right,
I mean, he's pretty prominently displayed on all of their ads for the film.
Right.
and he's the only reason why anybody I think would check it out. But they still made a profit. I mean, look, it's they made $11 million basically
Yeah.
off of it, over $11 million. So
Well, oh, yeah, right. Yeah. That's pretty good. Yeah, that's considered
yeah, that's why I say
for
cash cow. Like they just looked at this as a like I think they got him into the film, but it's just weird that they couldn't have gotten together better writers. It's so weird, so weird.
Oh my
I
God.
don't know. Well, I feel like we've kind of chatted the audience up about this. I mean, we're trying out a different format, audience. So bear with us for for the way we do these reviews, just so we can see what works. Because we're trying to give you almost like real time commentary, but we also want you to we got to try to avoid getting struck down by the YouTube's algorithm for copyrights. So we're working it out. We're working it out. But what would you say? I can't even suggest that they check this thing out. That's the weird thing. So maybe we're going to have to do.
To be honest, I thought we were going to spend a little more time, really having fun with, certain scenes and things like that.
It's kind of hard
That's
to
what.
have fun with it without them
No,
seeing
I
it,
had
though.
no, that's true. No, you're right. You're right. It's hard to have
It's
fun with
most
it.
fun. Like I started realizing as we were doing this that so long as they could, because you were making comments on the movie while we're watching it, and I'm like, it would be great if they could see this, but if we show it to them, we're gonna get hit by YouTube's
No,
algorithm.
no, but in a similar way, J-Wit, the way that you and I make fun of when we recall movies and scenes, I thought that maybe we could do that, and maybe we can. I don't know in the future, but
Yeah, I don't
uh,
know.
yeah,
Yeah, but it seems like I don't know if the watch it
yeah,
together and then edit out is the way to do this, huh? Go ahead.
yeah, sure, yeah, but I I don't know. I think in some ways we could find a way, but for this film though, it's not that I won't uh recommend it or not. I mean, you know what I mean? Like I'm not going to
Mhm.
say that it's a film that I like, but I had a lot of fun personally. Like me watching it. It's just relaxing, doing a
Yeah, but
little
you had some edibles too,
yeah,
right?
doing little edibles, doing little
Yeah,
cannabis, and you
yeah,
could see it, and I actually had a good time, me and my partner. So uh it's going into it knowing that it's bad. It's one of those films though where it's like there are certain films that are so bad that it's actually kind of good, and
yeah,
this does not fall into it at all.
yeah.
but but at
I
the
think
same
if we
go
take
ahead.
the drugs out,
Yeah.
if we take the edibles out of it, this is like because I watched it totally sober, and it was just like I had to keep pausing it because I was like, all right, I had other stuff I had to do. It was a hard watch. It was a hard watch, but
Yeah. No,
it
yeah.
was worth laughing about. Now, granted, there were some good laughs, but
Yeah.
hmm, they were very much laughing at, but not laughing at you. When you think of
Yeah.
laughing with and at somebody, but not the
Right.
kind that's like a good laughing at. It's like sort of like this is just so bad. It's so bad. It's just bad on every, and it's just sensationalistic in some ways. It's just I can't believe they put $16 million in it. That's just baffling to me because it seems so low budget that it just the CGI, those guys probably made out like bandits. They probably paid those guys pretty well, and they gave them pretty bad special effects. I think like the CGI was not very convincing at all.
My favorite part in the film, one of my favorite parts is literally the wing is on fire
Yeah,
and the sexy waitress is looking out and she does like this model kind of like look at it, like
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
she
yeah,
does that 3/4 thing, she's looking
yeah,
out. Me and my partner, we watched that, we were like, we can't believe, like we laughed like crazy because like we can't
yeah.
believe they did that.
There's a lot of showing her. They utilized her wearing the kind of like
Yeah,
stewardess kind of. It's like the classic trope of this the sexy stewardess or whatever
right, the
with the
sexy
kind of
steward.
like
Yeah,
form fitting dress, and so they
yeah,
use that to they used it as much as they could in the film because they have again, they have this kind of plausible deniability. If you say, "Hey, what's up with this kind of sex pot that you got in the video?" You're like, "Hey, it's just stewardess. What are you talking about? We're just filming. It's a realistic part of the film." It's like, okay, I got you. I got you. Like, so it's like, how do we get the sexy kind of woman into the film without being too overt? Oh, we make it happen on a plane so we can have her like plenty of leg shots and all that kind of thing. It's kind of
Okay,
weird.
this is wild, dude. It's like, you know what? Like, who were they really targeting? Because okay, we all know they're probably targeting this Christian subculture,
Yeah.
but they're adding these, like, sexy things, or kind of sort of little racy kind of moments, sort of,
Yeah,
right? Kind
but
of
safe enough where
walking
they could
that.
say, "Hey, it's just the
Yeah,
stewardess. What are you talking
it's just the
about?" You
story.
know?
But then you
Yeah,
know that what they're doing in behind the scenes, like the writers and the director, they're hedging it still at the same time. Because, like, no, but like, we got to try and target the secular market too. Like, you want to make this like appeal to them. So
yeah.
they're
Or you just
doing this
want
like
the
weird.
husband to want to
Yeah,
bring his wife out to the film, right? You
yeah,
want to get
yeah,
him in the
yeah,
seat. It's
yeah.
like, oh, I want to check it out again.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hey, let's go back with our, so you can take a look at her again, and that
Yeah.
kind of it's clearly, it's I don't know, it's pretty bad. But if you take
Uh,
that out, um, and there are a couple scenes even with the daughter of Nicolas Cage where like her shirt's kind of unbuttoned after, I don't know if you
yeah.
noticed it, after the rapture takes place, she's like she happens to be leaning over, her shirt's unbuttoned, and you see a little more, let me see if I can
Yeah,
I'll see
yeah,
if I can
no,
pull up a
yeah.
screenshot. That
I,
might be
I remember
important.
that. Yes, yes. That's so
Because I
funny.
remember
Yeah.
seeing that and be like, what? Like you're
Yeah,
showing a
like
little
what?
cleavage?
Yeah, like,
Like
seriously? You're making Christian stumble, yo, by showing that stuff,
like,
you
let
know?
me see. I gotta take a screenshot of this. Because her shirt starts off buttoned up, and then
Yeah.
it's like, oh, what? Again, they have the plausible deniability. It was like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? I mean, the rapture took
Yeah.
place. She got robbed. What do you mean? Her shirt's unbuttoned. It's like, come on, man. Like, I wasn't born yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Let's see. Let's see.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, it's
In
pretty
that
bad.
way, yeah. In that way, it's hilarious.
But yeah, that's my take on it.
Yeah.
That's my take on it. Let's
Oh my
see.
gosh.
But yeah, I normally we tell people at the end, go check this film out. It's worthwhile. It's going to be that's a hard sell.
Well, you
Uh,
could watch it the way that me and my partner did. You just kind of relax,
get a couple of
do,
beers or something.
yeah, a couple beers, do an edible. Like, if you feel like having a laugh, uh, at the expense of the film, by all means, uh, you know, go for it. But other than that, if you're looking for something, I mean, the first two films that we reviewed in this pod, Serious Man and Being There, yeah, you talk about something completely different, right? Uh, Nothing, like, in terms of actual, like, if you want real value coming out, that's, I would say, you know, in on a very kind of existential level. I think films like A Serious Man and Being There actually touch on that really, really, really effectively. And they're great films, right? That's the biggest, that's the biggest part. They're two great films.
I
So
got the scene. Okay.
you got
This
it.
is the
Yeah.
yeah. Let me
Yeah.
see if I can pull it up for them. Let's see, and then we'll sign off. But I just gotta like show you guys this. This is insanity. So many screenshots here. I really wish there was a slightly more elastic fair use. See, see. All right, let's see. Pull
Bring
up
it
this
on.
image.
Bring it
Yeah,
on.
let's
Let's see
see.
it.
Yeah, let's see. Let's see. There you go. You should see this, right?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Yeah.
See if
There you
I
go.
can zoom in on her for you, so
Okay.
you can
Yeah.
see where they were really trying
Okay.
to. You see
Okay.
that? You see that,
Okay.
fellas?
Okay.
That's what they're trying to.
Okay. Okay.
Like a totally unnecessary shot. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
So, it was really awkward the way that she moved, like the way that she broke that glass. and then she's like kind of crawling. Like that was like the best like actiony thing they can do with her almost, in
Yeah,
that
but
moment. Yeah.
clearly, like
It was
they're
like,
come on, man. Like they know what they're doing. Come on, what are you doing that for? Why is that scene there? Why, like, bro, like, why is this in the movie? This is a Christian film. What's going on here?
she didn't have to
Like,
crawl at all. She could have just
not at
ducked
all.
down
Like,
and
yeah,
then just
okay,
duck. Yeah,
yeah.
like,
Let
and
me
then just
zoom out.
stand up.
Let me zoom
Yeah.
out. Let me
Yeah. Zoom
zoom
out.
out.
She could have
Let me,
totally,
yeah.
that's,
Like,
yeah.
remember, she breaks the bottom of this door
Yeah.
window thing. So instead of her breaking the
She could have
top
broke
and
the
just so,
door. She could even broke the door too. I
yeah,
don't know.
instead
It's like, why
they
did
set
she?
a situation where she has to be on her hands and knees and they can show you cleavage. Like that's on purpose, man. It's like, come on. And so just so that people don't think
uh,
that we're taking this and actually kind of blowing it up. No, there's plenty of that. There's plenty of obvious kind of like
yeah.
hints. I mean, that's pretty obvious. They got her on her hands and knees and some
Right.
like kind of tight jeans, and her blouse is basically open. Like, come on,
Right.
what's going on? Uh, it's weird. So it's a weird mix, but this is evangelicalism. They're going for, and it's also interesting. American evangelical. She's like dirty blonde. I think the other woman is a blonde. So they're not even very creative. They're like, okay, we got to
Yeah.
get two blondes in there that are kind of attractive to draw people out. So who are they targeting? They're targeting mainstream evangelicals with this film, and it's anybody who finds this to be entertaining or in a sense buttressing their faith. Come on, man. This is it's so bad on every level and so generic. It just reminds me of what I experience every time I go to any place where you have like those kinds of strip malls that you saw in the film earlier on. You
Yeah.
see this kind of blandwich America, like just, you know,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's like,
Absolutely.
and I guess that shows you a lot with the culture that buys into this rapture stuff. It's a sort of kind of bland Americana. It's just like they're not trying to challenge themselves at all. Artfully, who's going there on a Friday night to watch that? You know. So I guess yeah, for our regular audience, be thankful that you don't have to even consider taking any of this kind of thing seriously. You don't even you don't even have to consider that this is actually a thing that people will ever be in these situations. It's just ridiculous. But yeah, you see total mayhem. Every airport is closed. I think that's what Nicolas Cage. He's in the air, but he can't land his
Yeah.
plane. That
See,
ends
yeah,
being
that I didn't buy that. The fact that every airport was closed. Like I
yeah,
didn't buy that at all. Like
yeah.
seriously? Like that many that there that like that many Christians, like every single airplane there, like there's a Christian in
It's pretty
every
optimistic. It's pretty optimistic about
every single air trapfic controller is a Christian in at every
yeah.
airport. That's
Yeah, he
ridiculous.
said he said every airport was closed. And
What
so of
the
course they
heck?
have this near accident where he's losing
Yeah.
massive amounts of fuel. So that's where the suspense is. He loses all his fuel. It's like, okay, how is he going to get the plane to land without crashing? But then again, remember, this is supposed to be the end of the world. Why does it even matter if the plane crashes, right? Like, you just saw everybody vanish. So there's a sense in which they're trying to give you the suspense where it's like, all right, he's he's running out of fuel. He's got to land, but he's got to land at what? To be in an apocalyptic hellscape? Like, think about it. Like you're landing the plane and you're landing it on a planet that's now just totally a hellscape, where
Right.
everybody's just robbing everybody, and it's so it's really not that suspensive. It's like you'd almost think he'd want to nosedive into the ocean if he knew this was really happening, right? You'd want to just commit suicide on some level.
Yeah, sure. Or, or just they're just not really given the kind of budget that they have, I guess, they can't do like, really spectacular things, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean what they're trying to do, it's a little bit like maybe what they're trying to do is a little bit like Escape from New York, where, you got this plane in the air and then, you got this like hellscape happening and then but their version of it is just so tame. It's so, they did their best trying to make it appealing, but they really don't know how. And it's really because of the audience. The audience that they're targeting. Like they're trying to
So
make this. Yeah.
I just Googled what the average cost to produce a major film is, and they
Yeah.
have it set around 65 million.
Yeah.
So basically, at 16 million, this is essentially a shoestring budget.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
For like think about like they have these huge props like, an airplane and mayhem happening, crashes, buses going off bridges, and
well, that was actually a scaled down version. And when the bus went, it was quite obviously not to scale. Like that was obviously a
okay,
small
it's a
model. Yeah.
smaller, so you could
Yeah,
tell.
and I think that's what's going on with the plane too. A lot of those
Yeah.
scenes are not really,
Yeah, no, I know those are CG and stuff, but they still had to have like, by the time it crash landed, they needed some kind of model there, like a real life set, happening.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
most of the scenes we see of the plane are actually either just totally CGI or like a model of a
yeah,
plane with mixed with CGI. Probably
really
it's
bad
probably some,
CGI. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
terrible
it's just,
CGI. Yeah,
yeah. So yeah,
yeah.
so I'm thinking $16 million is a lot of money, but I guess you got to pay these guys doing the CGI a lot of. You have to pay Nick Cage a
It,
lot of money.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so
yeah.
it
But
gets
like,
expensive pretty quickly.
I think for a film, for like an actual religious film, religious themed film, it's probably one of the higher ones, though, higher budgets, that has come around.
Hmm.
Because I think religious films have notoriously been, very underfunded, right? If you talk about the kind of films that were coming out in the 80s and 90s, that were religious based, that they were just talk about shoestring budgets. So, yeah,
I'm
it's
looking up
wild.
Passion of the Christ budget. For the
Oh no, I
Passion of the
mean,
Christ, he spent $30 million on that
yeah, I mean
one. So
that's
that's
different. That's different though.
yeah, that's
That's
Mel Gibson.
Mel
Yeah.
Gibson with all the clout he has in Hollywood. Um, but I don't even know how this compares to the original Left Behind, because I haven't even watched the Kirk Cameron.
When did the
So
original come out?
it was like in the late '90s, I think,
Let's see.
late '90s. Can't imagine how bad that one is.
Okay, let's see. What came out in 2000? Let's
Yeah.
see what the
Okay.
budget for that was. Uh, they said it was 17.4 million.
Oh, okay. So it was actually higher if you given inflation, right? So that actually had a higher budget.
Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
well, our this was a later film and it was 16 million. So even without inflation, it still was more expensive.
Yeah, yeah,
So it
yeah,
was significantly more expensive actually if you account for inflation over the
yeah.
14 years or whatever. So yeah, it looks really hokey too though. It looks terrible.
This looks awful. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at some of
yeah,
the imagery. All right, fellas, but let's see. What do we have here? Think I don't think I have any other.
yeah.
I
I
did
guess
think
that.
I well, you know what? Let's see. I didn't pull up all of the. Let's see. I wanted to show them a couple shots of little face off between the little
Yeah, there's a
person
little face
and the
off.
Muslim, which is just kind of weird. The Muslim is just an
Yeah,
aloof kind of bad guy.
yeah,
This I thought was really odd. I thought it was odd that the emergency breathing stuff was there was no real accident, so that was kind of strange. That
yeah.
it just
Right.
seemed like totally superfluous.
Yeah.
But yeah, this we didn't talk
Oh,
about
yeah, they
this
pull
scene,
out a
which was
gun at one
so
point.
yeah.
That's right. That's
And
right.
I can't remember how she ends up getting the gun. I guess there's a air marshal or whatever who
Yeah,
has a gun on planes often.
yeah.
So I guess the air marshal must have been raptured and left his gun,
That's right. He
which
left his gun. Yeah.
which enabled them to have this scene where the black woman grabs the gun and just is panicking. And this guy, he's like
Right.
a good guy saying, "Hey, point the gun at me. I'll take." Basically, he's like the Christ-like figure. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
well, that being said, we hope that you guys have enjoyed this rather erratic and sporadic walk through one of the exports of America, one of our many horrible exports, which is, I guess, religious, like suspense, drama, horror. It's like horror, suspense, drama. Would you say that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
We'll say this is a horror, suspense, drama, religious export. That was it was terrible. Yeah, it was terrible. Yeah, it was terrible. I mean, we even complete with a zombie of sorts. But hey, finish off your latte, your matcha, and we'll see you next time. Hopefully, we'll get these to you with more regularity. Okay? Take care.
Thanks, everybody. Peace.